He was fired up.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the meeting of the Tulare County Board of Supervisors. I want to get this meeting convened before I keep hearing dog treats squeaking next to me and dog toys, so it distracts me even more from paying attention to what we're doing here today. We will now stand for a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Specifically, this moment of silence will be dedicated to the victims of Hurricane Harvey. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, Council, would you like to take care of the urgency item now, or would we go ahead and move forward?
Sure, we can take care of the urgency
Yeah, let's get the urgency item out of the way so we can at least get it on the agenda.
All right. So, good morning. The board may add an urgent item to the agenda and may take action on it if certain conditions are met. First, the board must publicly identify the item, and second, the board must vote to add it to the agenda. In order to add an item to the agenda, the board must find two requirements have been met: that there is a need to take immediate action, and the need for action came to the attention of the agency after the agenda item was posted. The item here is as follows. This morning, county officials determined that there was a need to proclaim a local emergency due to a rapidly spreading wildfire, and to issue mandatory evacuation orders for the communities of Pierpoint Springs, Washon, Doyle Springs, Alpine, Sequoia Crest, Crest Slope, and Camp Nelson. So the events leading to this emergency are currently developing, and the determination to proclaim a local emergency and to issue evacuation orders was made this morning after the agenda was posted. Action needs to be taken today because the emergency proclamation and the evacuation orders were signed this morning by the Emergency Services Manager in accordance with Section 1-15-1030 of the Tulare County Ordinance Code and Government Code Section 8630. Such a proclamation of emergency must be ratified by the board within 7 days to remain effective. In addition, orders issued pursuant to Section 1-15-1030 of the Tulare County Ordinance Code and Government Code Section 8634 must be confirmed by the Board of Supervisors at the earliest practical time. There is no regularly scheduled board meeting within the next 7 days, so the board would need to discuss and determine if these conditions have been met and vote to add it to the agenda.
Okay, any supervisor want to repeat that verbatim?
Move to approve adding it to the agenda.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Crocker, a second by Supervisor Shuckley. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay.
Okay, and then I need a motion to approve the item to ratify the August 29, 2017 proclamation of local emergency due to the wildfire being known as the Pier Fire, and ratify and confirm all emergency orders issued by the Director of Emergency Services in relation to the Pier Fire, including the evacuation orders issued this morning, August 29, 2017.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by the supervisor that owns a cabin in that jurisdiction, Supervisor Ennis, and a second by Supervisor Shuckling. All in favor, please. Well, actually, just vote. All right, motion passes unanimously, 5-0. All right, we will now reconvene on our regular agenda and take up item number 1, which is Board of Supervisors matters, and I will look to my right and start with Supervisor Michael T. Ennis.
Thank you. Yeah, last week we had a meeting at Porterville College. They received an AT&T grant for $2,000 to go towards their industrial pathways program. What a great grant to come forward to help these young people, and not only young people, but young adults, to learn a skill and to improve their way of life, to get a certificate, maybe in welding, maybe in electrical or some other field, so that they can improve their family's life and their life. I know we went inside and took a tour of the lab, which they do their welding and everything in. And the teacher said, he asked one of the people participating, he said, you've already got a good job. Why are you in here? He says, well, because I'm going to get my certificate. And once I get the certificate and take it back to my employer, he'll give me a $5 an hour raise. So it's quite an encouragement to these people to go out. And they can only probably take in 28 kids per semester. And he said we've got 3 times that many people wanting to get in the program. So what a necessary program. Because a lot of people don't want to go on to a 4-year school. They want to learn a good skill that they can make a good living at. And this gives them that opportunity. We met yesterday with the Tule Indian Reservation Council on the casino move as we continue to work towards trying to get an MOU put together. And I think we gave them kind of a timetable yesterday that within the next 30 days we will have our facts and figures and stuff together for them so that hopefully they can move forward. Supervisor Worthley will be going up to Sacramento next week. He's got a meeting up there, and he told the Indian Council that he would go up a day early to help them with their trying to get their pact for their present casino renewed and hopefully get the one for the future if this does move forward and get into trust. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Crocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the thing that one I had the opportunity yesterday morning to go out to the Lemon Cove Fire Station and witness a nice training of how our fire department is able to go out to a scene that's a structure fire and how they're working in a safe manner and all the hazards, and they did that all on a 110-degree day with all their gear and everything, and so it was great to see that department in action and seeing good resources put to use, and we know that that's the case here with the pier fire going on right now. In addition, I had another nice tour last week of our sheriff's farm, and went out and saw how the farm saves us $800,000. That's quite an operation every year. And those hogs are big. Oh, let me tell you, there's some big old hogs out there.
Good too.
Oh yeah, they smell wonderful. Those chickens, that's another thing. Oh, let me tell you. But that's great. I think that's the ways that I would like to see our departments, be innovative to make sure that we're saving costs on things that we have to provide already, and that just means that we can put those dollars that we'd normally put into regular operations back into services that we can continue to serve our communities. With that, later this week, I will be meeting with Joel Nelson, head of California Citrus Mutual. I've been speaking with several industry leaders over the last couple of months, and there's been a lot of talk about abandoned orchards and how that relates to an increased threat of Asian citrus psyllids and their population growth as individuals don't necessarily take action for that. And so I'm hoping that we have a great discussion to talk about what options the county may have in looking at that issue and making sure that we're helping out that industry.
All right, Supervisor Shucklian.
Yes, last Wednesday we had the groundbreaking for the Avenue 280, or as we call it, the Caldwell Avenue widening project from Acres to the 99. That's the first phase of a 13-mile project that will go from the 99 to the city of Exeter. So that was a well-attended event. And on Thursday I attended a CSAC workshop regarding the state budget. And it was nice to see there's about, I think, 4 other county employees there at that also, learning about how the state runs its crazy budget. So that's it.
All right, Supervisor Worthley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 weeks ago, when we did not have a meeting, the Monday before that, on the 14th of August, the Joint Powers Authority, the San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority, submitted its application to the State Water Commission for the construction funding for Temperance Plat. That was a major undertaking, and we were very pleased to be able to submit our application. I was not here last Tuesday because the Speaker of the Assembly, Rendon, was able to tour the facility site of where we proposed to build the dam, and so I had an opportunity to be there and meet the Mr. Rendon and tour the site with him. So I thought that was important for me to be there. Been a lot of meetings lately, such things as in Woodlake. If you're not aware, Woodlake has a very wonderful jewel, the San Joaquin. It's the botanical gardens they have there. Primarily the result of two individuals in that community who have, Emmanuel and his wife, who have worked very, very diligently to create this and had a lot of volunteer help from students and others in the community. But now the question is how do they go forward, because botanical gardens are not like parks. It's not like you go out there and mow the lawn and keep the trees watered. There's a tremendous amount of hand labor involved. We were told that the rose garden alone of that is among the 8 largest in the country. There's over 150 varieties and over 500 plants, and the roses themselves represent a value of over $1 million. And so there is a great need then for private funding to make this go forward. And hopefully people will step up and provide a foundation for that to go forward, because it truly is a jewel in the San Joaquin Valley. We had, I'm sure our chairman will talk about it, our insurance authority met last Friday, setting rates for the county. And anyway, lots of meetings and more to come, so that's all I'll talk about today. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. A couple things I want to go over. This Friday at 7:30 in the morning at the Wyndham Hotel. I think it's 7:30. Is it right, Rosemary? Okay. 7:30 at the Wyndham is the United Way Community Breakfast. It's always a wonderful event, well attended, and United Way recognizes volunteers and partners who have helped contribute to them achieving their mission over the last year, and look forward to a great event and a great MC at that event as well.
Not again.
Next, I want to go over the San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority. We did have a meeting last Friday, and we did set rates for the upcoming year. The rates are based on the previous 12 months of experience, and I know I had mentioned at an earlier Board of Supervisors meeting that we were looking at a negative 0.9% decrease. Well, as we met at this last meeting last week, a really good month of plan experience that we had that calculated that 0.9% decrease fell off of the 12-month period, and a really bad month with very high claims was added on to the rolling 12-month period that was used to calculate the rates for the upcoming year. And so we actually ended up adopting a rate for Tulare County, just Tulare County employees, of a 3.3% increase. That is phenomenal compared to what is going on in the market, and that is phenomenal compared to what Fresno County had adopted for their employees. For their employees in the PPO plan, they adopted over a 12% increase. And so I give kudos to this board, and I also compliment the Fresno County board members who sit on the SJVIA for allowing both counties to stand separately for this renewal. We do share fixed costs, but the rates that we are receiving over this next year are more reflective of each individual's entity's plan experience. And so I appreciate that effort, and am glad that the wellness efforts and Tulare County employees taking care of themselves is being rewarded by allowing us to have a rate increase that's reflective of our plan experience. And then the last thing I want to say is Saturday is like a national holiday for me. College football starts. UCLA plays Texas A&M. I do say go Bruins, and Pac-12 is going to be very tough to beat this year. I just will say that much, knowing that I have a Fresno State Bulldog fan on the dais here with me. So that being said, we will now wrap up Board of Supervisors matters and move on to Supervisor Shucklin's favorite item of her supervisorial career. That is the introduction of the Tulare County Sheriff's Department new canine cadets or officers, Tex and Axel. So we do have 2 canines that are going to be introduced this morning, and I'll
Best
turn it
looking
over to the Sheriff's Department.
Best looking deputies in the force.
I think Mr. Spotter
Well,
really enjoyed them speaking
next to you, Larry.
during Deanne's comments.
Larry, you can bring him around here if you want to show him in
Yeah,
here
bring
real
him
quick.
in the well here. We want to take a look at him. Look at that guy.
Oh, you are
Brother,
gorgeous.
he looks good.
What a sharp dog.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now these
Do
dogs,
they
are
get
from-
along?
Are they from Austria or where are they from?
Sweetie.
They're from here. This is a Dutch Shepherd. You can tell with the tiger striping.
Yeah.
And his name is, they're brand new, this is Tex.
Oh, okay. Tex. Yeah. Good looking
Tex is
dog.
about a year and a half old. And this is Deputy Stark and Shannon.
Good.
First of all, Sheriff Bureau said this, he's not able to make it. So
Yeah.
this we wanted to be here. There was a conflict that came up. So, but he has taken Bob steps to build this canine team up. We used to have 8 handlers and hands for years.
Wow.
Good.
We have 10 on patrol and 2 in the jail. So Tex is protection trained and cross-trained for narcotics. He actually has a find of a gun already, so he's got a gun on the street that was hidden, and during his search of finding it, he alerted and we recovered the gun. So they can find evidence of things that have been handled. What they're looking for is disturbances. So if somebody has a gun, there's a good disturbance, looking into it and pick up on it. They've been on the street, how long now? 3 weeks. 3 weeks? And so in 3 weeks, he's already found 1 gun and got a gun off the street.
Yeah.
Right.
That a boy.
Hi, baby.
What a good looking dog.
You know, the people, we've got people running the workers that are, look for them, they have
Oh, yeah.
they alert. So if someone's hiding and they can't get to them, they bark a lot. That's what they're barking
Yeah.
out there, they can go on, but
Who was hiding out there? Who was hiding out there?
What'd they find?
I noticed Julietta walked in right afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
they let you know, hey, somebody's over here, I can't get to them, and we can bring them. Well, this is Tex, and then we have, Axel. Why don't you bring him up, Brian? This is, Deputy Brian Panero.
Yeah.
They went to
No, you're good. You can stand there.
and she
What another good looking dog.
he's narcotic trained also.
Yeah.
On the street about, 3 weeks. Does he have any fines or apprehensions? Still working?
Yeah.
Constant training.
Yeah. It's a good looking guy.
Takes the dogs. It's like accepting a child into your family.
Yeah.
You have to every day look after them, groom them. If you leave on vacation for an extended period of time, you have to have somebody cover, watch them. They don't live in the house; they live in a kennel. They're a working dog, and they need to know the difference. They will bond with the family very, very well, very protective of the family. So they get it; it's a pack mentality. But they have to remain alpha. The handler duty, the dogs listen to them. The dogs think they're the baddest going out there, but they know the dad's the one above them, or mom's the
Yeah.
one that's going to hold them in check. But here's our 2 newest member trainers.
And what breed are they?
This is a Dutch Shepherd, and this is a Belgian Malinois. And their breeds are somewhat close. I'm not an actual expert on those, but you can tell by the tiger striping on these. This is what a Dutch
Yeah.
Shepherd usually looks like with the tiger striping on it. And this one's big for a Dutch Shepherd. Usually they're 35, 40 pounds. This is pretty size.
Are they trained in a foreign language? German. Okay, yeah, that's what I.
Wow. So do you have to know the commands in the language? Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
He knows. He found something.
It's French, not pirate. Drugs are right here. Yeah.
Be careful, don't say that. It's multiple meanings. Some of the dogs.
What makes them superior to a Labrador or a German Shepherd that we're used to?
Well, the Labrador is a very high drive dog and is primarily in narcotics. Don't get it for COD. They're used, they'll use it for DOD because they're just so crazy Czech Shepherd, and we have some German Shepherds. There's nothing wrong with them at all. The problem is that we have to make sure that there's a good bloodline and it's clean and there's not inbreeding. Because what happens that develops.
Hip dysplasia.
Yeah, hip dysplasia.
No, same with labs. Yeah.
They were paying $6,000 now for a dog or something like that. Some of that area, I don't know exactly the prices on that, but we don't want that to have a dog with them a year and a half. So that's what they're coming to keep us there. We make sure that they're medically clear and they're absolutely in good health when we get them. And that's when we So, again, turtle twos.
Yeah.
This was reacting. That was in a pounce position.
Yeah, he's laying there and he's wanting to go over and say hi and play, and they run around, they want to, they're just like kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They want to do something, they try to establish dominance over each other, and it's the handler's job to break it up and stop it. And it's teams that you work, and they're dogs. And we have to understand their personality and how they work, and take the appropriate action where it goes.
Captain, would you lean over and grab that microphone and talk into that so that everyone in the audience can hear as well? There may be some questions from board members. I know Supervisor Shuckling has a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I forgot what it was now. I know, gentlemen, that the K-9 group has trading cards, so when you get those, please, I want to add them to my collection. And then I know you have to find sponsors for them. If you need any help with that, please let me know, because I want to get those out there on the streets as quick as possible. And I know we had the emergency ordinance a little bit ago. It might have been a Brown Act violation, I'm sorry, but the four of us decided beforehand that we voted in that we'd like Chairman Vanderpool to put on a bite suit and give a little demonstration. Is that possible?
Sign me up.
But I do have a little gift for the dogs, if that's okay. It was either a Christmas bag or a baby shower bag. I figured they're new arrivals. So we know how much folks in law enforcement love donuts. So donut doggy toys and a couple of little rawhides. One for whoops, the rawhide's coming off. One for Axel, and I got one here for.
What?
There you go. Thank you guys very much.
Got an extra one for me?
Well, actually, there you go, Mike. I got one for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Chew on that
Sometimes I get a little
for a while, Mike.
I get a little nervous.
That's great.
That's
Well,
good.
thank you for bringing your canines to the board and introducing them. That's a really exciting thing, and they're great-looking dogs. Any member of the public have any questions at this time regarding these canines? Okay, and maybe deputies, if you guys could walk them through the audience so folks can see them.
See if anybody has guns.
Who's
or
running?
narcotics.
See if you can find any guns or drugs or anything.
Don't come up here.
Because the schools have to do the finders, they have to.
But welcome to the county family.
Thank you, guys.
Betcha.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
know that that's gonna.
Give them a round of applause. Good-looking dogs.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate you coming.
Oh, he's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Do they bite? Yes.
Yes, they bite.
All right, next we're going to move on our agenda and switch from the Sheriff's Department and move on to the Fire Department, which we are very fortunate to have a Fire Department agenda item today, given all the activity that's going on in our county related to the Pier Fire. But at this time, I'd like to call forward Chief Norman to say a few words. Chief? And you just grab that microphone and turn that around to you.
There we go.
Thank you.
You know, if they could just teach those dogs how to write reports.
Yeah. That's in the works.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Mr. Spada, Ms. Peterson, members of the board. It's with bittersweet feelings that I come to the board this morning. All best wishes to Jasmine and her future endeavors, but Jasmine is such an institutional part of the fire department. On November 27th, 1989, her journey began with the county. She started as an office assistant, too, with the Tulare County Fire Department, which was in CAL FIRE. She promoted to Office Assistant 3 in 1997 and was promoted to Training Division Bureau Secretary in 2001. In 2006, when we formed our own fire department, she became our department secretary. She's worked under the leadership of 7 different fire chiefs, which, again, shows that she has the epitome of patience and tolerance, and obviously she knows if we take ourselves way too seriously. She's been instrumental in the establishment of our administration. She's a tremendous asset to our department, both personally and professionally. She's firm. She always keeps us on track with just a hint of influence the way we do it Jasmine's way. She's meant so much to the Tulare County Fire Department. Working around her, she makes us better servants of the public. She makes us better people. And with that, you can't have this without a great supporting cast. And I think a testament to that is her husband, since 1978, Sarkis. He's behind the camera. And again, her daughters. She has 2 daughters. Both have PhDs. Tamara has a PhD in physical therapy. Sandra has a PhD in pharmacy. And without this very supportive, successful cast, it makes us all better people. Again, a testament to her character and work ethic. On behalf of the county and the Tulare County Fire Department, I want to thank you for your many years of service, and hope health and happiness are very much in your future. And we're going to miss you so much. Thank you.
All right, Jasmine, now you can come around over here into what we call the well. And on behalf of Tulare County and the Tulare County Board of Supervisors, it is really an honor for me to be able to present you with the highest honor we can bestow upon a county employee, and that is the Great Seal of the County of Tulare. So this is, Supervisor Mike Ennis refers to it, the giant coaster, and you can hang this on your wall or set a big mug on there when you're watching college football on the weekend. But really, this seal is presented to you, Hasmik E. Enfiedjian. I wanted to try to get it. The Department Secretary of the Tulare County Fire Department, in appreciation for your years of service and dedication to the community and to Tulare County. Dated November 27th, 1989, when I was a proud Tipton Tiger in kindergarten at that time. And that runs through September 15th of 2017. What an incredible career, and I'm going to miss getting your monthly emails with the newsletter. And it's been a pleasure to interact with you as much as I've been able to. And I know that you've had a huge impact on the Tulare County Fire Department, and I'm very grateful for your service.
Thank
so
you,
congratulations, and may the
Thank you
best
so
years
much.
of your life be ahead of you.
I'm going to get emotional.
And you can say a few words after a picture with the chief
No.
if you would like. You want to stand back a little bit? We're going to have to scoop. I'm just used to doing these pictures.
Okay, ready? Look over here. Okay, supervisors, stand behind her.
Want all of us? All right. I have a donut left, Jasmine, if you want to.
Stand back to get the county seal in here.
Okay, go ahead, Jasmine. Oh, wait, I got one important person. Sarkis. Sorry, everybody.
That's not fair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, it's not. Oops, wrong seat. Twice I've done that.
You know, I really appreciate what you've done. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to have served Tulare County the past almost 28 years. It's been an honor. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Great, congratulations. All right, the next item on our agenda today is item number 4, which is public comments. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item that is within our jurisdiction but not on today's agenda. Is there anyone here wishing to speak under public comment? Chief, would you like to give us a quick update about the Pier Fire?
Thank you for asking.
That would be great. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Spada, Ms. Peterson. Just kind of a quick update, the Pier Fire. We were alerted of the Pier Fire about 2 a.m. this morning. First cruise, it was initial attack by CAL FIRE, United States Forest Service, and Tulare County Fire Department. The initial report was approximately 100 acres going up both sides of Highway 190, the south side and then the drainage to the north. Immediate concerns for the area were Sequoia Crest, Cedar Slope, Pier Point, Doyle Springs, Alpine Village, and Camp Nelson. So we do have some significant issues. Those are all under mandatory evacuations. Doyle Springs has been evacuated. Ponderosa is currently under voluntary evacuation at this time. As of leaving for this meeting, the fire is between 700 and 800 acres at 0% containment. Unknown damage estimates and unknown property damage. At this point, we have no injuries at this time. At first light, we were able to get aircraft on it, and I think with the low relative humidity and the high heat index this afternoon, we'll be able to tell us where we're going to the next 24 to 36 hours. So that's kind of in a nutshell. We did open the Emergency Operations Center this morning, so we also have a shelter in place at Porterville College for all the evacuees. Thank you for the signing of the evacuation order, and I would answer any questions you may have at this time.
Chief, have there been any, I know you don't have any exact numbers, but are there any immediate structure threats that have either been burnt or are threatened to be burned at this time, do you think?
No reports of damage at this point. The immediate threat was about 40 structures. When we sent out the alert TC, it pinged on approximately 1,300 people.
Wow.
So we know we do have a threatened population, and the majority of those have been moved.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Any additional public comments this morning? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period and bring it to the board. We will now take up the consent calendar. On the consent calendar, items 14 through 16 are subject to review and approval by County Council. We need to make sure that we add that in there. Item 17 will be removed from calendar altogether. And then item 27, there will be some minor changes that will be announced.
Right,
I look to the council for additional clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That one is subject, that is, the certification of council will be amended to add reference to Penal Code Section 422.93, and the board's vote will direct and authorize the county council and the CAO to sign their respective certifications with this change.
Okay. Any additional corrections or items to be removed from consent calendar?
I have a question on item 5.
Okay, item 5, we can pull that from the consent calendar. Any questions or corrections from members of the public? Okay, seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion regarding the balance of the consent
calendar.
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously on the balance of the consent calendar as amended. We will now take up item number 5. Supervisor Shucklian, your question?
Yeah, I'm wondering, as far as with the purchase, where do we purchase the vehicles? Is it a local dealer that we purchase from? Do we have a vendor?
Sheriff would have to tell you that.
I saw you shrug your shoulders. Sorry. Sorry, Captain.
Good morning, Council. Keith Douglas, Assistant Sheriff for Sheriff Mike Bedore, Sheriff's Office. Supervisor Shuckley, and the answer to your question is that actually goes out to bid through RMA, through Motor Pool General Services, and through purchasing. It has been done. We do have local vendors that do bid on the contract, but because of the size and the quantity, it does go out for general bid.
Okay, because I know in my previous life, when we would have that, we had a local preference that if we went to a local dealer that could match whatever, the bigger dealers and out of the area, we would do that. So,
There are local preferences within purchasing, but again, because of the size and quantity, it does go out general bid.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Assistant Sheriff. Chair will now entertain a motion if there's no further questions.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Supervisor Ennis, a second by Supervisor Shuckley, and please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, we are now going to move on to the untimed portion of our meeting today. Item number 28 is a request to receive a presentation from the Resource Management Agency regarding the Transit Operations and Maintenance Facility Project for Tulare County Area Transit. Ross, where's the UCLA tie?
Ross.
No tie today, but I am wearing UCLA socks.
Okay, that's great.
TMI.
Look at both of you.
That stinks.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, Mr. CAO, County Council. My name is Ross Miller. I'm a Chief Engineer with the Resource Management Agency. I'm here to talk about the authorization to bid for the Transit Operations and Maintenance Facility. Just to give you a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you an update on the project, including some renderings and other discussion about that. Talk about the master plan coordination and this involvement with fire station and other existing and future facilities, including some decisions from the ad hoc committee in the past. And if the ad hoc committee would at any point like to hold another meeting, we are happy to do so at any time. After that, we will talk a bit about the schedule for the project. We are talking about coordination efforts we are taking with the Fire Station 1 project. Then we have the request for this particular agenda item, followed by some acknowledgments, and then a general discussion and comments and questions. So just to go a little back in time, since a couple of the supervisors are newer than the last time I've given a similar presentation. The need for the Transit Operations and Maintenance Facility comes from a few different places. First, we currently rent our operations and maintenance space from the city of Visalia at their Transit Operations and Maintenance Facility. That has worked out pretty well, but we lease it from them at a roughly market rate, so we're not necessarily saving any money by being there. And moving here would allow for more growth of the service, for more control, and over time, as the Visalia fleet's growing, as it's added services like their recent V-Line or the Sequoia Shuttle, it's kind of starting to put a little pressure on us to find a new home. As they're growing, they're eventually going to want to squeeze us out of their facility. And then the facility was also called for as part of the Tulare County Central Road Yard Expansion Master Plan from a few years ago. I will touch on that more a bit later in this presentation. So the current construction estimate is around $9.85 million. This includes some contingency, and it is probably a bit on the conservative side for the total project. It is within our current budget and allocations. It's a little higher than our last estimate, but as things have been refined a little, it's moved in this direction. But again, considering our allocations and some increases in some of our grant funding, particularly our funding for the CNG fueling station, it's been able to be maintained without any concern. We're getting funding from a variety of sources. There was a grant program for several years called PTMISEA. I don't want to read the entire name because it's quite a mouthful. We're also getting some of it from our ongoing transit funds, Local Transportation Fund, and State Transit Assistance Fund. As I mentioned, we're also getting CMAQ, which is a grant program focused on congestion mitigation and air quality. They're paying for the CNG fueling facility. Measure R was putting in a match towards that. And we're getting some from a Governor's Officer of Emergency Services program to put in security measures, including some cameras and fencing and such. Here is a rendering of what the facility will look like. I do want to warn you that despite the roof looking rather orange, it's actually like a Spanish roof tile type setup. It's a concrete tile. It's just the rendering program has trouble dealing with that kind of texture at this kind of scale. So it's not orange, and the coloring here is a red metal panel. Pardon?
The old Howard Johnson.
Howard Johnson.
No teal, though. No teal. So the operations building is and this was decided by the ad hoc committee in the past. It's going to be a wood frame construction. It's going to be stucco, and this is a Spanish tile roof. This is a pre-engineered metal building, and it's being designed actually, so in the future, it can easily be expanded out to add more bays as services grow and need grows for more maintenance, but it's not necessary at this time and wouldn't be the wisest use of funds until it does become needed. And I'll show you a view from another angle, and I do have a sample of the tile if you guys are truly worried about that. We thought you might be. It's coming from the backside. This is not the side viewable from public. Lover's Lane, our Road 140, is out here. This would be towards the back from the access road and the bus parking and fueling areas. Here's a layout of the operations building. This is an open office area, a couple of offices, entryway. This is actually a dividable conference room, bathrooms, showers, locker room area, lunch and break room, dispatch down here, a few other ancillary functions, a room for the vaults that come off the buses with the fares, as well as the counting machine and some other things. Here's just this is a rendering of what the entryway will look like in the future. It's a rendering of one of the restrooms, and this is the conference room that was mentioned. This is the open office area, so this will have some dividers and desks and chairs later on. As I mentioned before, it is being designed to try to provide for a lot of flexibility and to essentially future-proof the facility, making sure that we're set going forward. We have the option of adding maintenance bays. When the fleet reaches a certain size, it may become necessary to add our own wash facility and fluid island, which we will have the option of. Part of the site, which will be fenced, will not be paved at this time, so in the future we can allow for future fueling infrastructure and more parking, but again, it's not really necessary at this time. And there's also an option for solar canopies to go over the buses, both to provide green energy for the facility as well as to provide shade for the buses as they are parked. This is kind of a summary of some of the decisions that the ad hoc committee made in the past. Rather than belaboring each of the individual points, in general, the committee decided that for the retention basin for stormwater, for the seepage pits, for the sewage, for the well, and that we would build out the full disposal or generation structure there, the full well or the full seepage pit or the full retention basin, and then the conveyance, which would be the water system, the sewer lines, and the storm lines. The storm lines right now, there's going to be a structure connecting the existing drainage into the new basin. Going forward, there is an option to put in a more advanced system and cover up the current ditch that is there. The wastewater, the seepage pits are being designed to connect the existing facilities with the exception of animal control. That was originally going to be included, but the septic tank where they drained the animal waste into was basically is not really compatible with the rest of the waste stream. It would significantly increase the overall operating costs for everything, and it would put some serious issues onto the conveyance for waste. Telecommunications, we're working with IT on that, and the access road, we are only building as much as is necessary for the current TOMF project and the fire station at this time. When future projects come in down the road, the access road will be expanded further into the site. So this was the cost-sharing breakdown that was agreed to by the ad hoc committee and then approved by the board in a previous vote. Again, animal services has been excluded from this version because of the technical issues I mentioned. In total, it comes out very close to the estimate previously. The major difference for both projects being some increases related to conveyance of the sewage. Now to talk a bit about the schedule. We're asking for authorization to bid today, but we will not be immediately bidding. We are waiting for some approval from some of our funding agencies first. We are just trying to clear all of the hurdles to make sure that we are not in violation of any of our grant fundings and therefore risking any funding, but we want to do this so as soon as we clear that, we can get going as soon as possible. The award we are aiming for December of this year with the goal of beginning construction in January and completing construction by June of 2019. That is a very conservative time frame. That's about 17, 18 months of construction. More likely it will be around 14 to 16 months of construction, but we wanted to present you with a more conservative timeline there. We have also started a series of coordination meetings with capital projects to ensure that the TOMF does not in any way delay the fire station project coming up. Right now we are holding weekly coordination meetings. We started last week. We have another scheduled for Thursday between the staff working on the TOMF at RMA, the staff working on fire station capital projects, and another member of the capital projects team who is not working on that project who will serve as a monitor to just ensure that coordination's going well, everything's good, and that we're working with the contractor and getting everything scheduled so that all of the infrastructure for the TOMF that's required by the fire station, the seepage pits, the sewer lines, the retention basin, is built in a timeline that works for the fire station's construction so that there's no delay. And as soon as the fire station's fully built, it will be able to connect to the utilities and get its operating permit. So now the requests we have today. First off, it was to receive a presentation, which I just presented. Then we wanted to receive any guidance that you may have regarding the transit operations and maintenance facility as part of the Central Road Yard Master Plan. We wanted you to approve the plan specifications, the proposal and the contract for the TOMF. Wanted to get the chairman authorized to sign the plans and specifications when we are ready to bid, subject to a review and approval by County Council. And we wanted to get the approval for the advertisement of the bid so that we are ready to go when the funding letter of approval from funding agency is approved. As a moment, I would just like to send a thank you to the board for your guidance and the ad hoc committee for their past review and discussion on this project, to the CAO and his office for their help and guidance on this project, to TCAG staff for their help in our funding of this project, to our design team led by Arrington Watkins Architects, to the General Services Department for their help, especially on Fire Station 1 and the coordination there, as well as on the rest of the utility and as part of the road yard plan. For MV Transportation, who is our contract operator for the bus services, they're in the past have provided us with a lot of good guidance and input on these designs to ensure that what we are building complies with the size of fleet we have and everything there. And lastly, to RMA staff for their tireless efforts towards this project. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Questions or comments? Supervisor Worthley?
Well, first I want to say thanks to all concerned for bringing this project forward. I was just thinking, I think we go back 4 resource management agency directors back to talk about this project. And, it's what has happened over the last couple of years in the resource management agency moving these projects forward, and John and his team and the ad hoc committee is nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, I think we'd still be sitting around talking about this in circles without the progress that's been made. And I want to thank especially the ad hoc committee, because I think in many cases there were these price points that just pushed this thing, kept pushing it out, being too expensive. And when when I think the engagement of the ad hoc committee, of which I'm not a member, so I'm not patting myself on the back, when they got down and started saying, well, what do we really have to have? What do we really need? How can we cut costs? We've come up with a project that we can afford. And again, as you can see, it's a sizable project. It's not inexpensive, and when you pile it on top of all the other projects we're doing, it's nothing short of remarkable. But my congratulations, Ross, to you and your team, and for all those who've worked so hard to bring it to this point. And I'm very, very happy that before I leave the board, this will be under construction, if not completed.
Thank you.
Any additional comments?
No, I just think it's a great project. Been looking forward to it. I know that piece of land out there, and this is just another piece of the puzzle to put everything together, and then looking forward to having a new fire station out there eventually. So, great project. Looking forward to see the construction start. Great job.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as we continue to encourage the use of public transportation, we will only grow, and to have this space will be a good use.
One of the things I was going to mention, Ross, when you first brought this project, not you specifically, but when the first vision of this project came to the ad hoc committee, what was the proposed cost? Wasn't it like $15 million or something? A little more than that?
I believe 14 and a half.
Okay, so about 15 million. All right, so thanks for being very specific about that. 14.5 million. I appreciate Steve's comments because he really commended the ad hoc committee, which wasn't just myself and then Supervisor Cox, but it was comprised of RMA staff and really every participant or occupant of the road yard. We all came together to talk about this project, and I was actually very surprised to see that you thanked the architect, because the architect helped design the $14.5 million project that was going to be the cover of his brochure he was going to use to advertise to other public entities. But I'm glad that a feasible and more scaled back project was delivered that will meet our needs of today and allow for expansion into the future, but make use of the actual funding that we have available so that we didn't need to draw upon additional capital funds in order to get this project done and deliver the brochure-like facility that the architect was seeking at that time. So I'm very excited to see this project be completed. I think it's a good thing for the county to be based out of that site for transit purposes. I think it's going to serve our consumers well, and it makes sense to just create that nucleus of county services out there at Lover's Lane. So great job to you and the RMA team, and look forward to seeing this project completed. Any public comments?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Supervisor Crocker.
One question was I'd like to know how the costs were divvied out as far as for each department. I know the Ag Commissioner has limited use, and yet they seem to have an equal share. So what was the thought process as far as distributing those costs?
So all of the different components were divided in certain fashions to reflect the actual cost that would be attributable to them. For the septic system, it was looking at essentially how much wastewater is generated at each facility. For the sewer lines, it was in part looking at essentially which lines were shared by who and how long each of those lines were. For the water, which I guess I wasn't entirely clear on, there is a existing project right now that Capital Projects is leading to put the well out there already, as well as part of the distribution. So it was for that looking at basically which parts of the distribution lines were necessary for which facilities and how they were sized, and essentially dividing the cost that way and based on the use and requirements of water. For the retention basin, it was based on the total area of each facility and the attributable impervious area to each division. For the storm drain lines, it was essentially the same as the sewer and the water of how long the lines were, what size they were, and who was sharing what. For the conduit, that was divided out essentially by how far it had to go and where it was connecting. And then the access road was mostly attributable to the POMF with some additional widening required for the fire station, but that one's only shared by the fire station and transit at this time.
I guess that makes sense for the most part, except that the septic system, for the most part, it's all equally covered. So there's 16% each. That doesn't necessarily mean usage. That's just a flat spreading of departments that are out there.
Yeah, when those were reviewed, it was coming out fairly equal in terms of wastewater generation.
Everyone's flushing the same out. Good. And then the other question I have is, we had at the TCAG retreat earlier in the spring, there was some discussion about consolidation of transit throughout the county. And I know that there hasn't been any formalized agreement for that, but there's still been discussion. So how does our new transit facility, how would that work in that scenario if that moved forward?
If that moved forward, this would provide one of the larger maintenance and operation centers, which could be used by whatever the operating entity is, whether it remains just a loosely structured joint power agency or whether it became sort of a all-inclusive autonomous agency. It would have uses for both. It's located a little outside the city and would be better positioned to serve quite a bit of the southeast county. And if that were to go forward, some of the facilities, not Visalia, but some of the other ones, are shared city yards. So it's likely that, Porterville, which is a shared city yard, would not be using that and would have this as an option for maintenance. Does that answer your question?
Any additional questions or comments? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none,
Move
Chair will
approval, Mr.
entertain a
Chairman.
motion. I have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Next, we are going to move on our agenda to item number 29, which is a request from the Resource Management Agency to approve and award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, AG Construction Corporation from Clovis, California, for construction of Terabella and Rich Grove Road Improvement Project. Hernan. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Spada, County Council, Hernan Beltran, Chief Engineer with the Resource Management Agency. Today I'm here to request that your board award contract for construction of the Terabella and Rich Grove Road Improvement Project. Before I discuss and request approval of item number 29, I'd like to first provide you with a status update on the 2017 County Transportation Improvement Program. As you recall, earlier this year, your board approved the 2017 County Transportation Improvement Program. This year's program identified a total of 28 projects throughout the county. These projects range from community sidewalk and school flashing beacon system type projects to road rehabilitation projects. Of the 28 approved projects, 12 have been completed, as reflected by the green check marks. So you'll see on these slides, you'll see a couple of green check marks. Those are projects that have been completed. So this first slide is for District 1. Of this slide, I would like to highlight the first project, which is the Woodville School. We call it the Woodville ATP project. This project received ATP funding for fiscal year 2018-19. As part of the SB1 augmentation program, staff requested your board authorization to submit application material to seek the advancement of this project, which we are currently working with TCAG to look at that alternative, see if we could advance this project. With the exception of the Woodville ATP project, staff anticipates taking the remaining of these projects to construction in the spring. Next slide here shows summarizes a project listed project located in District 2. From this list, I would like to highlight project number 3, which is the Allensworth School Sidewalk project. This project is currently programmed through Measure R funds allocated to the county. And similar to the Woodville project, staff requested your board's authorization to submit the supplemental material for this project to be considered under the SB1 augmentation. Our goal is to receive ATP funds for the project, which will allow us to reallocate the Measure R funds for this project to another ATP project that is not likely to receive funding. As for District 3, we don't have a slide for District 3. However,
Right.
because most of your district lies within the city of Visalia.
I think that's great that you have no slide for District 3. It's fantastic, Ernie. Thank you.
But last week we had a great event at the groundbreaking.
I don't need a slide.
So no, we really do have 2 large projects in District 3. We have the Avenue 280 overlay project and the Avenue 280 widening project in District 3. So we do have great projects there. As far as District 4, the slide summarizes project located in District 4. Of this project, similar to the project, staff anticipates the construction of most of these projects in the spring. As far as the project I would like to highlight on this slide is the Monson project. This is pending the completion of the Monson well project. We anticipate this being done in October, so once we're completing the well project, we'll do some road repairs in that Monson area. Which brings me to the District 5 slide. This slide shows the list of projects located in District 5. The 2 projects outlined in blue are 2 of the 3 projects which are part of the Tarbella and Rich Grove Road Improvement Project, which I'll be discussing in the next slide. Which takes us to the project itself, Tarbella and Rich Grove Road Improvement Project. This project consists of 3 project locations. The first location is in the community of Rich Grove. It's basically a road rehab project along the Diagonal 205, which is Rich Grove Drive, between Avenue 0 and Avenue 8. The second project location is intersection improvements along Road 234 at the 92 and 95 intersection. The third project location is Road 236, some road rehab project, along with some pedestrian improvements starting from Avenue 96 to Avenue 100. And the last 2 projects are located within the community of Tarbella. One thing to note is that the Road 234 project is the final remaining project listed as part of the 2016 Community Transportation Infrastructure Program that was brought to your board in 2016. Some project benefits is we're addressing the farm-to-market needs. We're improving community infrastructure and rehabilitating existing pavement and upgrading curb ramps to meet the new ADA standards. The bid results for our project on July 18th, your board authorized the bid of the project. We received 4 bids on August 10th. AG Construction is the apparent lowest bidder, which is with just over $1 million, which is approximately 10% below the engineer's estimate. And we anticipate taking this project out to construction this October. Before I make the formal request, I would like to thank your board and the CAO's office for their guidance and support. I would also like to thank staff for their efforts and dedication in delivering these important projects. With that, I would like to request your board to approve and award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, AG Construction Corporation from Clovis, California, in the amount of $1,011,211 for construction of the Tarbella and Rich Grove Road Improvement Project, and authorize the chairman to sign the contract after review and approval as to form by County Council and upon receipt of certificates of insurance, bonds, and evidence that the contractor possesses a valid state contractor's license, and allow funds for contingencies in the amount of $63,060 to cover unexpected construction conditions, and authorize the director of the Resource Management Agency or his designee to approve change orders up to the amount of $63,060. With that, I will make myself available for any questions.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Supervisor Ennis?
This Terabell project is much needed. You know, in our economic development, we work to try to strengthen the businesses that we have. We like to lure new business, but take the business we have and improve the infrastructure around them so that they can grow. And with Sit Pistachio, Sierra Forest Products, and Porterville Citrus all in this vicinity out there, this Terabella project will help that. And then the Rich Grove project is just a matter of cleaning up the town, cleaning up, you know, they had a sidewalk program in there years ago. This just finishes that out, cleans up the main thoroughfare through Rich Grove, and makes it a much more attractive community. So, great projects.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Glad to see the long list of road and transportation enhancements in District 2 and nothing in District 3. Is there any additional public comments or questions? All right, seeing none, the chair will entertain direction. I have a motion by Supervisor Ennis, a second by Supervisor Crocker. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Hernan. Next, we will move on to item number 30 on the agenda. That's a request from the Auditor Controller to approve the rate of taxation of the state and county for fiscal year 2017-2018 to be collected on the taxable property of Tulare County. Rita.
Good morning. Chairman Vanderpool, board members, Mr. Spada, and Council Peterson. I am Rita Woodard, Tulare County Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector. And out of almost 30 years working for the county, this is about the 25th year that I have come to this board for this purpose of levying taxes on the taxpayers of this county. Today will be my last time doing this. And I want to thank the taxpayers of Tulare County for their support. And I believe we've done a lot of improvements in our offices to help those taxpayers in the payment of these taxes especially. So, this is the time fixed by law for levying the rate of taxation for the state and county purposes for fiscal year 2017-18. We recommend that the board approve the rate of taxation of the state and county for the fiscal year be collected upon the taxable property of the county of Tulare, State of California, at the rate of $1 per $100 of assessed value as shown on the schedules attached to the agenda item, as allowed by law. Article 13 of the California Constitution and Revenue and Taxation Code sections 93 and 100 authorize this. We further recommend this board order the tax rates as shown on the attached schedules A, B, and C be levied and directed to be collected upon each $100 valuation of the taxable property of the several school districts and special districts of said county for raising the necessary amounts to pay the principal and interest on the bonds for special purpose of said districts as allowed by law, Article 13 of the California Constitution and Revenue and Taxation Code sections 93 and 100. All of these tax rates have been approved by the voters of Tulare County through past ballot measures. There are 5 new bond issues this year. They include Burton Elementary 2016A, Early Mart Elementary 2016A, Exeter Elementary SPID 2016A, Farmersville Unified 2014B, and Pixley Unified 2014B. There were 6 bonds refinanced to allow for a reduced tax rate on their bills. Schedule D tax rates are approved by other governing board of supervisors. These are provided for your information only. We further recommend this board approve and accept the statement of valuation of the property in this county as compiled by the county auditor and filed with this board per Government Code section 25254A. Last year's current tax roll totaled $428 million plus in property taxes for all the schools, special districts, cities, and taxing agencies in the county, based on an assessed value of $33 billion. This year's total assessed value is $35 billion, so we're expecting it to be more this year once we get the rates approved and extend the tax roll and get the bills ready to go. Would you please approve these tax rates and the valuation reports? Thank you.
Any questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, I just
Supervisor
want to
Worthley?
make a kind of a quick comment. I know it's oftentimes we find folks who want to revise Prop 13, the 1% assessed valuation, because they feel like we're not collecting enough property tax. As it is, when you look at the amount of income, the increase in property taxes that have been collected since the Prop 13 was passed in 1978, it's grown much faster than the overall economy. So I think it's a specious argument. But I also want to point out something that you point out in this, and if you look at this list, the long list of add-ons, the ability of school districts and special districts and cities and so forth to seek bond funding in part is because of our lower tax rate. If we had a tax rate of 2%, 3% on our real property, the ability of these entities to be able to go out to the public and collect additional money to make improvements to their districts would be very difficult to accomplish. And so I think it's important to point that out, that our lower tax rate enables these other agencies to be able to do what they need to do, and the voters have been willing to fund these other projects. I just think it would have been very different if we didn't have Prop 13 controlling that overall base at 1%. I would make that point, and I would move to approve this requested agenda item.
Any public comments on this? All right, seeing none, I have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Great job on your last time making this request, Rita. All right. Next. Don't get too emotional yet. You're not retired. Keep working hard. We'll move on to item number 31 on our agenda now, which is a request from the Board of Supervisors staff to provide direction to staff regarding the development of a groundwater ordinance to include or exclude the following elements. And if I read them all, I'm going to do your whole presentation, Denise. So
I was hoping you would do that for me. Denise England, Water Resources Program Director for the Board of Supervisors. Good morning, Board, Council, and CAO. The matter before you today is regarding a groundwater ordinance, and so we'll take a quick trip back in history of how this all came about, and I'll try to make it brief. So starting in 2015, the Water Commission started exploring the possibility of a groundwater ordinance, and this was following the adoption of SGMA by the state legislature and looking at a continued effort from the state to enact different requirements that would effectively speed up SGMA. So they were looking at a layer of protection. And so in 2015, the Water Commission and APAC formed a joint subcommittee. The APAC is the Agriculture Policy Advisory Committee. And they identified what problem a potential groundwater ordinance could solve. And that was basically centered around issues around new land coming into agricultural production, recognizing that SGMA was going to potentially put a significant restrictions on groundwater extraction. So in 2016, that joint subcommittee made a recommendation for your board to consider. However, when that recommendation went back to the full advisory committees, neither advisory committee agreed with that recommendation. So then there was two more recommendations, one out of the full Water Commission and one out of the full APAC. And I brought those forward in December of 2016. Now, two of you weren't on the board at that time, but nevertheless, the board provided the direction back in December of 2016 to primarily rely upon SGMA to bring the county into groundwater sustainability, develop an emergency or interim ordinance that proposes a new well moratorium for land that has never been farmed, include a requirement for a hydrology study for a new well on land that has never been farmed, exempt de minimis users, that's a definition out of SGMA, and those are wells that pump less than 2 acre-feet annually for domestic purposes, and to coordinate with groundwater sustainability agencies to identify hydrologic data available from their efforts and evaluate that information for future recommendations on well separation. And so staff went back and drafted a well ordinance, a groundwater ordinance. That is a key distinction. We have a well construction ordinance, and this is something different. This is a groundwater ordinance. And that was finalized in early August and provided to both the Water Commission and APAC. You have APAC's formal memo in your packet. They disagree with the ordinance that was submitted, and they would actually rather see the county focus some efforts on groundwater exportation. And then the Water Commission also weighed in, and their comments were generally supportive of the ordinance, but they wanted some tweaks. And so out of both of those stakeholder processes, 7 items were identified that would need board direction. We also have this matter scheduled for closed session, and so it's your pleasure whether you want me to run through those 7 items or if you have specific questions or how you'd like to handle that.
I would like to run through the 7 items and then take public feedback, and then if there is a need for closed session, we can adjourn at that time.
So the first is unincorporated water systems, unincorporated community water systems. APAC specifically questioned this per the direction that was received in December. It was to focus the groundwater ordinance only on agricultural land coming into production. So one of the questions is if there was a new development that came in, would the same restrictions apply, or how the board would want to handle that. As the ordinance is currently written, it does not speak to unincorporated community water systems, and so I need some direction from the board on that.
Questions or comments regarding that specific item? To me, I think that the recommendation was to focus on ag land, and we're not really looking at what the unincorporated communities and in community territories, what their water usage is based on them having independently elected boards and regulating their use of water based on the needs of their community.
Sure. Okay, the second item is groundwater and fractured rock wells outside of the alluvial groundwater subbasin. So as the ordinance is written currently, there is a sunset date when groundwater sustainability plans are adopted. Those wells that are outside of the alluvial basin, so in the foothills or even in the mountains, they will never have a groundwater sustainability plan because they are outside of the jurisdiction of the groundwater sustainability agencies. So some direction from the board on how to handle those wells if the whole, and that kind of gets to the next point as well, if the whole ordinance sunsets on a specific date, or if those wells out, those properties outside of the alluvial groundwater basin, if this ordinance would apply to them in perpetuity.
Comments on that?
I'm just going to save my comments for after all the 7.
Okay, so maybe just run through the items
Sure.
and then we can talk.
So
and if we don't cover some element, then bring up the question at that time.
So the third is a sunset date, as I mentioned before. Currently, the ordinance is written to sunset when GSPs are adopted, which is technically January 2020, and I think that's what staff took the meaning of the sunset date. However, those GSPs aren't going to be fully implemented until 2040, so those groundwater subbasins won't be sustainable or in a sustainable state until 2040, so some direction on if the 2020 date or the 2040 date is the board's preference. The fourth item is exception for sustainable extraction, and then the follow-up question to that would be what would be used to verify that extraction is in fact sustainable. Something that's different between Tulare County and San Luis Obispo County or Stanislaus County is that we don't have reports and data that we are able to compare. So if somebody submits to us a report that says our extraction is sustainable, we would have to take it as true versus being able to compare with something that we already have. The fourth item is requirements for well separation currently, and the direction provided was to wait until GSPs and GSAs developed additional data and not to include well separation, but the Water Commission has, this is one of their key priorities is some sort of well separation. We know that we can't standardize well separation for the whole county. We could possibly do it regionally, but again, we don't have the data to support a well separation requirement. The sixth item is surface water. We intentionally left surface water out. A comment has been we need to include surface water in the ordinance. And then finally is groundwater exportation. We did not include groundwater exportation in the ordinance, and some would like to have it included. So those are the 7 items that need some direction. And with that, I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Comments or questions from supervisors? Want to wait until after public comment, or what's the?
I mean,
you
either
have any
way,
questions? Anything you want to
I don't
bring up
necessarily
right
have
now?
any questions necessarily, but just feedback.
Okay. At this time, then I think I will open it up to public comment, and then the board can respond and comment after public comment has concluded. So if you would like to offer any public comment at this time, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Public comment can and will be limited to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak under public comment period? Either microphone works.
Good morning, members of the board. Tricia Stever Blattler on behalf of the Tulare County Farm Bureau at 737 North Bid Maddox Way. Thank goodness road construction has finally stopped on Bid Maddox. Just a brief comment because I submitted a letter yesterday that I believe the board is in receipt of. Farm Bureau has followed this process for a number of years alongside your staff and is aware of the many twists and turns that this conversation has taken. We are very interested to find out the direction that the board will issue today based on those 6 or 7 topics, because those have been critical questions that have appeared at many of the Ag Policy Advisory meetings, as well as Farm Bureau meetings and Water Commission meetings. So the balance of my comments are in that letter, and I won't take time in my 2 minutes to iterate all that's in the letter. But the Farm Bureau Board of Directors certainly does share concerns and has issued a statement of opposition that they feel the timing of this ordinance is probably too late, and they feel that it would be better focused to have your staff and the resources of the county focused on fully implementing SGMA for its success. So some of the comments and questions that we raised in our letter were developed through consultation with the California Farm Bureau's legal counsel, and highlights and compares and contrasts some of the questions that came about from the Stanislaus model being applied to the development of the first draft of this ordinance. So the Farm Bureau does have considerable concerns and would not be in favor of the current draft of this ordinance advancing, especially in light of the number of questions that have been raised. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tricia. Any additional public comments at this time? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period and bring it back to the board for deliberation. Supervisor Ennis.
Well, I would surely be against groundwater exportation, especially out of Tulare County to other counties. Under the drilling wells on ground that hasn't been used in 10 years, I was kind of a proponent of that, and I'm kind of back off that now. I think the GSA will take care of those problems down the road, and I think people do have land rights, and I think we'd be opening up a whole new can of worms by trying to go there. So those were the 2 items that I wanted to state.
Okay. Any additional comments, Supervisor Crocker?
I think when this board took a position on SB 252 earlier in the year, we took that opposition to that legislation for a few reasons, and one of them was that the main reason, as far as I was concerned, was that we needed to allow SGMA to do what it was written to do. To achieve that sustainability, and so we said it's unnecessary to have this extra layer for permitting that. We have property owners' rights, and so that was kind of the thought process. And I think that same reason why we opposed SB 252 holds to this potential ordinance as well. And so I would recommend that we don't move forward with these options. As far as the groundwater exportation, if that was something that we looked into, I guess the questions that I would have would be, one, I'd like more information as far as how large is the problem, and then and really, do we have any legal standing over that? I know we have multiple irrigation districts that have that cover multiple counties, and that we also have GSAs that and subbasins that span multiple counties. So I don't know exactly how that operates within those confines. So I guess clarity from just the legal standpoint as far as whether or not there's any standing, I think would be beneficial on that side. But ultimately, I think that we've got Sigma. We're dealing with this. Just to reiterate what Tricia already said, that we're placing tremendous amount of staff time, in large part with your efforts, Denise, working in all of the subbasins, and I just don't see the need to put any more staff time into this particular potential ordinance.
Supervisor Worthley?
Well, I agree with the comments made by my colleague Kyla Crocker here. That I realize that some of this was being driven by millennial drought that has had us doing a tremendous amount of groundwater pumping, and the consequences of that in terms of how it affected domestic wells, commercial and industrial and agricultural wells. And now we're sitting here this year with the third wettest winter in the history of recorded history in the San Joaquin Valley. Rivers have been running. In fact, the St. Johns River has been running since sometime this winter until just a couple of days ago. I mean, here almost into September. Groundwater has recovered in some cases as much as 100 feet. So we're in a very different situation. And I think sometimes bad ordinances and laws come out of emergency situations. And now we can kind of back off and see the emergency has really, fortunately, in some ways, has passed us by. Not that we don't have to be concerned about our water issues, and as has been pointed out, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is going to be a superimposition over all of the overdrafted basins. And I'm reminded of the air district. At one time, every county had their own air district. Now we have a regional air quality control board that governs the 8 counties of the San Joaquin Valley. There is really no need for the county to intervene and say we have to have our own air quality standards when we have this super agency that governs the whole area. Sigma is much the same way. It's going to cover all these overdrafted basins, and that includes basically everything on the valley floor and in the San Joaquin Valley, in our county. So I'm not concerned about the 40-year time horizon because that's the ultimate outlook. The plans themselves have to be done within the next 2 years. They have to be submitted to the state for approval, and then begins the implementation process. And so we're already seeing things happening even on the marketplace where the land values are already changing in terms of whether or not you've got surface water or you don't have surface water. So I believe we need to let Sigma work its way through this thing. I think on the groundwater exportation ordinance, I think it would be worthwhile investigating it. And I raise it in this respect. There may come a time, and I kind of anticipate this, that when we get through the Sigma process and we've determined how much you can withdraw under your ground, Mr. Farmer, without hurting your neighbors. And you might say, well, I can take 2 acre-feet out of my ground, and I've got 1,000 acres. And Metropolitan says, I'll gladly pay you $1,000 an acre-foot for that water. And so you say, fine, and you ship it out. You're not hurting anybody because you've already determined that you can farm it without hurting anybody. But it certainly hurts our local economy. It means that we're not producing product on that land. We're not employing people. We may be affecting its tax basis or its tax rate. So I think the county does have a vested interest in looking at exportations, but recognizing that just an outright ban is also an error, as pointed out by Mr. Crocker. We have water basins which extend beyond county boundaries, and also let's not forget there may be opportunities to export an acre-foot of water and bring in 2 acre-feet of water. So there may be opportunities actually to benefit from exportation where there's importation that's tied to it. So I think we have to be very cautious about that. But I think it's worth exploring because I don't think Sigma is going to really address that particular issue, as I pointed out. I think it may make it easier for people to export water under SGMA because we'll be able to determine what they can export without injuring their neighbors, which is the whole basis, really, of our ability to get injunctions now. It's based on nuisance. If you're pumping water out and affecting your neighbor, then you can be enjoined from doing that because you're creating a nuisance for them. So for those reasons, I think we should stay the course. Even the idea of separation of wells, I think the problem when you make these hard and fast rules, there are always exceptions. And I think back to a situation in my district where we had a well that got put in, and because of a lack of separation, there was a problem with it. But there was an engineering solution. You know, the engineering solution was to seal off more of that well so that it was pulling from a deeper aquifer and not affecting the property owner next door. So we always have these solutions that can come to bear. And when you just have a rule that says thou shalt not, well, then we stop all that. So I believe at this point, the only thing I'm really interested in looking at from a well ordinance standpoint would be looking at this issue of exportation. And I think it's going to take a lot of looking at, a lot of time spent on it, and analyzing what is the best approach for Tulare County.
Supervisor Shuckley?
Well, there's not much left to be said, is there?
There's not much left of air in this area.
No, there's plenty of air, but it's all hot. No, just kidding. No, I'm in agreement here. You know, if this was 5 or 6 years ago before SGMA, when we were in the midst of the drought, I could see. I know we've talked a lot about the Stanislaus ordinance. You know, that took place, I think it was 2014. So, you know, we're talking, 3 years later. The exportation, I was doing some research, and I think San Luis Obispo County recently did an ordinance, and there was part of that. There was the southern part of the county was in some talks with Santa Maria County to bring some water in. So as you said, if we say, well, we're not putting any water out of our county, it could hurt folks, maybe wanting to have some other county water brought in. But again, it's worth investigating. But I agree. Let's let SGMA do its thing and see what happens from there.
All right. I have a long speech prepared. No, I'm kidding. I agree with the comments that have been made. I think that one thing that's very important in this whole process was that we went through the appropriate stakeholder groups to bring recommendations to this board. We went to the Agricultural Policy Advisory Committee. We went to the the Water Commission. Both of those bodies exist with professionals in those given subject areas to give advice to the Board of Supervisors in areas that we may not have the most expertise or experience. And those groups concluded that they were not comfortable with the ordinances as proposed, or the ordinance as proposed. I do think that there is an opportunity, and I brought it up several years ago, to look into the groundwater exportation. I think we do have to do some real thorough due diligence on that subject because there are some impacts of that that could be very negative for Tulare County and for our overall water situation. But there are also benefits potentially as well, I think, to a groundwater exportation ordinance in terms of furthering the water stability in certain areas of our county. I know that there are some very large instances that we've all seen in the news of surface water rights that were intended for particular ground in other counties that were sold down the river for very significant amounts of money, and that water was replaced with groundwater, some of which came from Tulare County. So I think that there is a basis for looking into that. And if we do come up with some general principles related to a groundwater exportation ordinance, I would like to see those general principles run through the same advisory committee structures because I think that there are valuable perspectives that could be brought to the board on that specific issue that would ultimately affect our decision at that point in time. So with that being said, I think that the direction seems clear, but I will entertain a motion from the Board of Supervisors to formalize the direction if that's appropriate.
Well, I guess in that case, I would move that, based upon the comments that have been made, that we would bring back a proposed findings, if you will, to the board to review and adopt at a later date.
Go ahead.
So,
Your question?
wait, council is, council had a question about the clarification of what this council suggested, but you're not council to the board of supervisors, so I gotta look this way.
It's on. Sorry.
We heard your whispering, so go ahead.
Oh, well, okay, that's good. So I just want to be clear that what your direction is to basically scrap this, what we've been working on right now, which is the moratorium on the wells in the areas that haven't been irrigated, and to move forward with researching a groundwater export ordinance and come back and report to you what we find on that.
Yep, that's correct.
A through F's off the table, G is for exploration.
Okay, so we have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item number 32, which is a request to receive a presentation from the County Administrative Office regarding the projects completed in fiscal year 2016-2017 and the proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2017-2018. And I can keep talking because I know you need time to raise that microphone to your height there, John.
Microphone.
Yeah, very good. All right, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Spada, Ms. Peterson, John Hess, Deputy CAO for General Services and Capital Projects. Presentation regarding the CIP. So first, we'll look at the CIP, what it is. We'll look at last year's projects. We'll look at the 5-year program coming forward. Also, the Parks and Maintenance Improvement Program, the recommendations for future actions, and at the end, conclude with requested action to approve the CIP. So first, kind of a real simple, basic understanding of what the CIP is. It's a 5-year strategic planning tool that includes improvements to county-owned buildings. It summarizes funding requirements. It is not in and of itself a budget document in the sense that it allocates funding to projects. It is used to help assist in and inform the budgetary decisions made by your board and the county administrative officer. So the activity ensures the proper stewardship and maintenance of county assets. There's a twofold project management approach that's taken with respect to each project. First, the project needs to ensure that the expenditure of that project aligns with and supports the board's countywide strategic priorities, and 2, that it enhances the ability of county departments to achieve their individual missions. So that's kind of the twofold: one, that it's consistent with the county's strategic goals, and that 2, that it's helping the department in some way, shape, or form assist to do their business better. So again, the purpose of the CIP is to ensure the county has the building resources necessary to deliver services to customers. So we are essentially a support to the county. We provide services to other county departments. We own, as I presented in other matters, especially with property management, we have over 100 buildings in the county, and that's about 1.5 million square feet. The last county-wide building assessment that was conducted about 9 years ago in 2008 and 2009 by Vanner. The sources of funding that are utilized to support capital projects are varied. First and foremost is the Millennium Fund, which was established by the board many years ago as an endowment, so to speak, for future capital projects funds, and that has been an important and consistent part of the activities undertaken through capital projects. Second, state and federal agencies also provide funds to projects on a project basis, I think the most notable of which is the 2 jail projects. Third, county departments. They provide funds to projects as on a case-by-case basis. This last year, for example, Health and Human Services provided funds, Ag Commissioner provided funding, Sheriff's Office provided funds as well. So there are a variety of county departments that help assist in doing projects through capital projects. One of the major sources of funds is one-time money from the county general fund that is dedicated to projects on an individual case-by-case basis. And then we have a variety of small miscellaneous fees from selling plans and sales taxes and things like that. So quick facts regarding this last year that we just concluded. It was the highest level of capital projects expenditures on record in the county by quite a bit amount. You'll see on the next slide there's a graph that shows that amount. It really just kind of blew the other years out of the water. In the past 3 years, we've spent $64 million in capital projects. Again, a very, very large amount of money. We completed or advanced 30 projects last year, assisting 10 departments, and our administration and overhead was only 4% of our overall project expenditures, well below industry standards for construction. So as mentioned, here is our annual expenditures since the origination of the Capital Projects Fund in early 2000s. You can see this year and last year are, again, just significantly higher than any historical trends. Last year, really quickly, we did purchase the Cigna property. So of that 23 million there, 15 million of it was attributable to Cigna. So if you were to back that out, the actual construction cost would be, considerably lower. This year, of course, we have the South County Detention Facility is the large expenditure in this. I do think, and we'll see this as some of our future tables in the presentation here, that if we were to project this kind of into the next 5 years, let's say, I think we'll see some high years, but then it will go back down to some historical more normals in the $5 to $10 million range as we phase out some of our very large projects that we have on the menu right now. So here's a look at the last 15 to 16 years of expenditures broken down by category. You can see 90% was expended on projects directly, and there are support costs, there's professional services, and then there's operating transfers out where we give funds to other departments to undertake projects, as well as, of course, salaries and benefits at 3% of the overall expenditures. Revenue sources here are shown. The vast majority of revenue comes from county money and the Millennium Fund. Between those two, it's about 94% of the pie over the last 15 years, 16 years. Again, if we were to project this probably for the next 5 years, that 4% that's attributable to state funds is going to grow in major proportion as we get $100 million in reimbursement from the state of California. So that'll be, every year we're going to see that slice of the pie grow very, very large. So now quickly, I'm going to go through the projects that we completed this last year, some of which are fully complete and some of which are still ongoing. First, and as a point as well, some of these projects had tail-end activities this fiscal year, but were substantially complete in prior fiscal years. For example, the Hillman roof, we substantially completed it previously, but we did have tail-end expenditures this fiscal year, so it shows up, of course, on our expenditures at this time. So Hillman roof, HVAC as well. We acquired the Visalia Wellness Center, which we received the plans for that project last week, and in conjunction with HHSA, we will be doing some outreach to understand and make sure we are incorporating public comment with respect to any improvements to that building. We had several HVAC, boiler, and chiller projects throughout the county. Here's a picture of one of them at Bob Wiley. That's a boiler up there at Bob Wiley. This is the roof at the Hillman Center. As you can see, before and after, quite a big improvement. New construction projects. We assisted the sheriff's farm operations that was mentioned earlier with respect to their agricultural operations. We were able to assist them with that, and we're going to be doing some more work for them this next year. We finished up a variety of activities in animal control. We've been doing many years' worth of projects there. We did a cattery. Balch Park restroom had been substantially complete previously, but some tail-end expenditures this year. Same with London Library. But London Library did open very early in the fiscal year. So there's the cattery at Animal Control, or Animal Services. There's the London Library, before and after. So rehabilitation and remodel projects, this is other than the countywide space improvement project. These are the other remodel projects that we do have going on in addition to that project. Porterville Wellness Center, we did with HHSA. Assessor's Office remodel, we finished up sort of a two-phase project there. Public Defender also finished up a two-phase project. Visalia Healthcare Clinic with HHSA. Ag Commissioner Office remodeled, we've been doing some items over there. Probation Office as well, which was another two-phase project. So here's the Porterville Wellness Center, kind of before and during. Here's the after. And here's the assessor's main office remodel. That is just before staff came back in to occupy the facility. So we additionally, some miscellaneous projects. We also had a safety project over the adult pretrial facility, and one of the housing units was a railing project to ensure some safety of the inmates in that facility. We finished up some tail-end responsibilities on the Bob Wiley Detention Facility well. And the Mineral King Sewer Telecommunications Project. That is, the city of Visalia was doing a very, very large sewer expansion project all along Mineral King from, I think, Noble or Locust, perhaps, all the way down to Demery. Very large project. And when they went in doing that project, they discovered that the county's telecommunications for our critical dispatch crosses the sewer line right here at Woodland. And so obviously, as we cannot have interruption for that service, we needed to make sure that our telecommunications infrastructure was protected during construction. And it worked out very well between us and the city, and there was no downtime of any kind, and the county really came out very well in that project in the end. So here's the railing project at pretrial. Here's the telecommunication project. You can see the vault that's cracked open on the right side with a gentleman working inside. Again, the sewer line was coming right through there. We need to make sure that our telecom was in place and not disturbed. Here's the list of ongoing projects, those projects that we advanced significantly during this last year that will be being completed in future years. South County Detention Facility, almost about $20 million there. Sequoia Field Program Facility, Property and Evidence, Fire Station, Vocational Education Building, the Space Project, Fleet Services Parts Room, Porterville Government Center, Cutler Well, Central Yard Well, Harmon Field Remediation, and the Juvenile Justice Center flooring. And each one of these shows up again on the CIP, and so we can discuss at that time as well. Here is some pictures of those projects that are ongoing. This is a before and after of the Cigna lobby, where the sheriffs and the fire department will have joint use of for people, welcoming into their reception and lobby area. You can see this was taken a few weeks ago on the right of what the glass looks like. This is over on the fire side at Cigna. We, from the ground up, had to cut into the slab, and we brought in a whole new shower, a break room, a locker room for the firefighters when they're there in the facility, perhaps for long periods of time. So you can see we constructed an entire new kind of facility there on the south end of their part of Cigna. This is the upstairs. This is part of the sheriff's office. This is their main conference room that you can see those 2x4s holding up the ceiling there for a bit. On the right, you'll see that partition wall was very, very heavy. We actually had to take a window off of the exterior of the building, cut some holes through the walls, and then on the weekend bring a crane in to bring that I-beam in to hoist up those partitions. It was quite an undertaking. It was very impressive. This is downstairs. This is, again, before and after of the sheriff's office. I believe this will be their fiscal business office downstairs. This is the HR project that we had the opportunity to tour last week, kind of during construction, during demolition, and then the final product from a few weeks ago. Again, this is HR's project. The exterior of HR, which we have. There's the bathroom at HR. We did several bathrooms there. So HHSA put together, they loaned their services to Rhonda to put together a time-lapse video of Colleen, who's in the maroon T-shirt here. She actually put the mural together off-site. She, drew it, did it off-site.
Can you make that bigger, John, by any chance, or not?
I don't see an expand.
I'm just looking out for my elder colleagues.
Oh, there's
that
patches.
Can only see that far.
I don't see anything.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. They can look at it later.
So yeah, you can see them. They installed it in a span of about a morning or even into the mid-afternoon here. So it was really impressive. I mean, again, the mural came out very well.
For the sun movement.
Yeah.
That's playing in the lobby, isn't it?
I think so. I think they have it on a loop. Again, this was the HHSA media team donated their services. They did a great job and was able to get this to memorialize this moment for us.
Yeah, Rhonda has this looping in her office all the time too, right? She just watches it over and over.
So the big project we have, of course, that was undertaken this last year, that's still in construction, will be finished this fiscal year that we are now in, is the South County Detention Facility. This is the renderings, the artist rendering of what it will look like at the end. These are in construction. You can see some of the walls being installed and the underground utilities being installed. Interior being constructed. More interior pictures of the housing units. The left was taken of an aerial photo there, and very recently, and the right was the first day of construction. So that's, you can kind of see from beginning to end there what we've done this year. It's really starting to take shape down there. Cutler Well, we have a well going in at Cutler Park. So as you can see, if you break them down, this is not essential. This is not very necessary, but it's helpful to see the ongoing completed project comparison. You can see that at $28.25 million, broken mostly into ongoing projects, primarily because of the South County Detention Facility. So those are the expenditures that we had this last year on projects. This is what we have for the next 5 years on programs. So again, the CIP it's a way of looking at the next 5 years and planning for our needs and trying to allocate those funds in the most appropriate way possible. First, South County Detention Facility will be complete this year. There probably will be tail-end expenditures next year. Space project this year, next year, maybe into the third year. Property and evidence will be completed this year, again with maybe tail end at the second year. Sequoia Field, we will complete design, begin construction. That's a 2-year construction process. Vocational education building will be finished this year. Fire Station 1 with the, when I designed this presentation, I did not have it completed this year, but it will be completed this fiscal year, or at least substantially so. So you can move that money over to the first column. Central Yard Well project, which was referenced earlier during the Thomas presentation, that is being undertaken by Capital, will be finished when both facilities are operational. Solid Waste Administrative Office, this is something that they are looking at and have asked us to also assist them in exploring. They have the funds to possibly do a new administrative office off-site at one of the landfills, something that we could explore as a matter of design. Visalia Wellness Center, as I mentioned, we will be doing some remodel work there. On the parks items, you'll see several parks items show up here. I'm gonna hold those off. There's special slides just for parks here in a bit, so you'll see those pop up again. Burl Avenue HVAC project is across the way at the Office of Ed building. Farmersville, when the fire department moves out, HSA will move in, and there will be some tenant improvements at that facility for them. Balch Park, Ledbetter Park, Peace Officer Memorial Support. The Tulare County Peace Officer Memorial Foundation has been fundraising for many years and is undertaking a project there independently of capital projects, but we are very happy and proud to support them in ways that we can through force account infrastructure and underground electrical and irrigation work. So we're happy to be a part of that project that they're undertaking. Board chambers improvements as well. Here at the board chambers, there's been some technical glitches on various different of the gadgets here in the board chambers, so we've been talking with the clerk to maybe do some improvements and modernizations on some of the voting switches and things of that nature to make sure we can avoid those glitches. Similarly, in elections, doing a very simple, brief office improvement project there. Bartlett Park, Woodville Park, Cutler Park, and Pixley Park also have allocations. Fleet Services Parts Room, we have that design, but we're going to defer it until we have the available funding next year. Same with the multi-year roof projects at Bob Wiley. We've done 2 of the 4 roofs, and we need to come back and do 2, but we're deferring those for 1 year until we can accumulate the funding. Items 24 and 25 have been on the CIPs for probably 5 years, been on there for a very long time, and those are, we know that there's a lot of substations, a lot of fire stations in the county, and many of them have deferred maintenance and have needs for improvements. As we get into future years, those may be good areas for us to look at utilizing some of our financial resources, not something we can address in the next 1 or 2 years because of all the activities we have going on elsewhere. Similarly with 26, which is Portable Justice Partners, I've made presentations on that through the property management side as well. We know as the portable courts increases, our support services will increase, and therefore our need for more real estate will increase. We're on a month-to-month tenancy in our current facility, and there's a current county-owned building, or at least jointly owned building with the state that's vacant at this time. So there's a lot of reasons why we should be exploring some expenditures there, perhaps into next year, not this first year. The remaining items are annual allocations to given categories of various major improvements that come up during the year. So with that, we just quickly look at the bottom line. As I mentioned earlier, I think we're going to see 2 or 3 years of high expenditures, and then we'll get back down into some sort of what we perhaps call historical normals into those 4 and 5 years, based on the plan put forth here, subject to change, of course. So very quickly on the Parks Improvement and Maintenance Program, this was brought forward to the board back in June, and so we are rolling it into the CIP, and it includes, parks has sort of a dual nature in that not only are there one-time improvements that we undertake through various different sources of funding, it also is an ongoing maintenance operation. So we've divided it accordingly as that sort of correlates to the capital and facilities side as well. Maintenance activities are typically undertaken with staff, and this next table outlines on a daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis sort of the maintenance log of activities that staff does at all of our 10 parks. I'm not going to go through all of those. There's quite a bit of activities that they do. Improvements are these one-time either expansions or enhancements to existing features, bringing new features into the parks. These are done with either money partnerships through capital projects, partnerships through RMA with grants. They've been very successful in obtaining grant funds for parks projects, so we've been very lucky over the last few years to have that, and we want to continue on those partnerships. So these are the slides that I was referring to previously with respect to the money that's been allocated through the Capital Projects Fund to support improvement activities in the Parks Department. This is the Mooney Grove amount at $500,000. The majority of the funds we were recommending going to Mooney Grove. It's consistent with the amount of monies that are expended at each park for their individual operations. It's consistent with that same distribution. It's been broken into 3 categories. First category, projects under $45,000. Second category is projects between $45,000 and $175,000, and then those projects above $175,000. The wisdom behind that is that's consistent with public contract code. Those items under $45,000 are done very quickly, very easily. We just work with a contractor, negotiate the work, and do the work. $45,000 to $175,000 is a limited, what they call informal bid that's done at a staff level, and it's done with a certain level of design. Above $175,000 requires the board's bid, and it's a full public works project. So very quickly, I'm just going to breeze through some of these items under $45,000. establish a mobile food vendor opportunity. We're going to be bringing to the board in September sort of mobile food vendor discussion for Civic Center Gov Plaza, then expand that into the parks. The Koi Pond Public Art Project, we've been working with some local arts consortium to get that going. We've established the boats. We're working with CSET to do a tree planting initiative as part of Make a Difference Day, complete paving improvements, paint the fences and gates, establish recreation programs, water fountains, and improve the entrance landscaping. All of those have begun in one shape or form. The mid project there is renovating the bridge deck. It would be a good project, and it's probably a medium-sized cost. Then when we get into the large projects, those are all associated with a 20-year master plan previously approved by the board. And those are very large projects to be undertaken. I don't know if we could take, obviously, all of these right now at this time. But so these are the remainder of the parks, again, consistent with the way we spend our funds in the park system. That 105 to Ledbetter is actually a match being contributed from capital projects to RMA to assist in the development or the completion of a grant-funded project there, which is going to be coming back to the board in September, I believe, for approval. Then Balch Park and those other 4 parks would have $25,000 each, $150 to Balch. And we would work with the Parks Advisory Committee to develop the list of projects at community meetings to come back with a return on suggested items for those parks.
And real quick, John, just on the 4 smaller parks, the Bartlett, Woodville, Cutler, and Pixley, the $25,000 worth of improvements, are you planning on having like a Park Advisory Committee meeting in that community to get community input on what they would like to see invested in their park for a relatively reasonable cost?
Yes, the Parks Advisory Committee is very interested in getting out into the communities, hearing from them directly with respect to because the Parks Advisory Committee has been working with the Mooney Grove Master Plan, a lot of their energies have been here appropriately with Mooney Grove at first, and now that we have funding allocated for other parks, they want to really get out there and hear what other folks have to say about their parks.
Great, thanks.
So as part of the CAP process, it's also an opportunity to look at administratively and organizationally, that is strategically, at what items can be done to improve the capital projects activities of the county. So the 3 that I'm recommending this year are first to establish a project review criteria, which would be a rubric methodology for allocating capital resources. Presently, it's done by those needs that are just imminent, that those needs that just need to be addressed. This would sort of formalize that or give some sort of allocation wisdom to that process. 2, formalizing a change order review process, not necessarily for every project, but surely some of the larger projects. Other jurisdictions have a formalized process in this regard, and we do have, of course, public contract code, and in our contract documents, there surely is a change order process. This would be more on the administrative side to see the appropriateness of that particular change order for that given project, not the is it consistent with the contractual requirements. Number 3, implement a post-construction evaluation process. We have a draft that we are working on. We'd like to implement this as part of our program for this next year, which would help us identify at the end of a project any errors, any lessons learned, anything we could do differently after a project's completed. So with that, end the presentation with these 2 requests. First, request to approve the 2017-18 Capital Improvement Plan and the 27-18 Parks and Recreation Maintenance and Improvement Program. And happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Question on the 5-year CIP grid, item number, where did it go? 16, board chambers improvements. What are some of the items?
Yeah, so right now we've had some technical glitches in the chambers here. Some of the infrastructure that's utilized for the voting records some of this is outdated and hasn't been addressed in a long time. We've had microphone issues and things like that. We'd like to spend a little bit of money to go in and modernize some of that. It's limited at this time to those items at this time, but okay. I've been working with the clerk to see what items are also of need for her to make sure that the chambers here are as modern as possible. Maybe a voting
new chair
box.
or something?
No, well, I thought about that, but no. What I'm thinking is I've been in other board chambers, and especially with ours, getting the little monitors in front of us that we can see, but that way you can see the time lapse things. Nothing real big that would obstruct people from seeing us, but maybe a slanted, and I think. Did Peg leave? Anyway, if we can consider that, and I'd also like us to consider in the future not only audio but video of our board meetings.
Sure.
I know that would go over well, but
the board has considered the audio visual some time ago.
I had to put it out there.
And I think we were thinking about the projectors as well. These are also getting kind of faded in the light bulbs.
So other than that, I'd just like to say I think we're very fortunate to have this fund to do these things. So many entities aren't able to do capital improvement projects. And when I was reading the report, I just want to thank you. It was like so thorough, and it explained. I mean, I understood it, but I think if you handed this report to a member of the public who didn't, they would understand what this is all about and why we do this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Worthley?
Well, just to comment on something that the Supervisor Shuckman commented on, I rather than maybe putting in a separate monitor, we might look at how we could integrate our existing computer systems in so we wouldn't have to do that, because when you buy something like that, it wears out, it's got to be replaced. And the technical world, things, 5 years is a long time. So just a suggestion, maybe an approach. And I think the audio-visual thing is something that needs to be subject to sort of a board discussion, because I know in the past our decision had been we really didn't want to do the visual because it just led to a lot of unexpected kind of consequences. Well, they can be kind of expected consequences. But anyway, I'm happy to have a conversation about that. I did have a question about the $50,000 allocation for pavement, if that's really adequate going forward. I know how expensive that is, and I know we've got a lot of pavement that needs to be fixed even around here, and $50,000 does not go very far when you're looking at that, so I wanted a question whether that was enough. The other thing was that I think it's always good to put things in context, so when you look at some of these, you might say, well, how come these other parks are being shortchanged? Well, I know we just spent, I think it was like $800,000 fixing up the electrical system in Bartlett Park last year. So it's always good to have a kind of context so people understand that maybe there's not a lot of money being spent now, but there has been significant money spent in the recent past on these parks. And I mean, this is kind of when they go out to the community, making sure people understand what has happened and where we're going, and sort of the justification for why we're looking at these different kind of allocations. But again, I want to just say, what a remarkable accomplishment, John, personally to you and to our staff, and it's amazing what we've been able to do. And I can remember when we first had the Measure R, I'm sorry, not the Measure R funds, the Millennium Fund. They were actually accumulating. We were piling them up. We didn't know how to spend them. We didn't, we knew we needed to spend them. We just didn't have a vehicle for getting it done. And now we're much more efficient at it. We recognize our needs. We're meeting them. We're doing a great job, I think, of maintaining our structures, our buildings. And I know we have a lot of ADA work to do. There's no end to the projects that we will continue to have to do. But it's just great to see the progress that we're making. So thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Crocker.
Thank you for the presentation. It's very thorough, and I really appreciate the pictures that show kind of the work that's been ongoing. I think it's important for the public to see, before and after. I really appreciate the 5-year approach and looking forward as far as where we know we're going to potentially have needs, and trying to make some planning decisions now for that. And I was really pleased to see fire stations. I know that I've been in several this past year, and some of them are 60 years old, and they haven't been touched in those 60 years. And exactly. And so I guess the two other suggestions that I would like to see as part of the 5-year plan, not necessarily this year or next year, considering budgetary constraints, and we already have but something for future is I think libraries can be looked at. We have quite a few libraries throughout the county, and as well as just energy efficiency / generation projects, energy generation. So the possibility for solar, and when we're looking at these HVAC projects that are happening on our facilities, whether or not we're getting efficient systems to make sure that we're decreasing our bottom line. Because again, whether we're talking about what's happening with the sheriff's department and the farm and helping do savings there, or whether we're going to be able to generate some energy to reduce our operating costs so that we can utilize that for more capital improvement projects or in other ways that we seem fit. I think it's very prudent for us to explore those options and see where it makes sense.
Very good. Thank you.
Michael T.
Yeah, I just thank you for that great report, John. I think it all stems back to the fact that how fiscally sound this county is right now, so that we're not indebted up to our necks like a lot of people are, and so it gives us the opportunity to free up some monies to improve our facilities for our employees and where they work. And we're very lucky to have gotten the grants. We've got almost $100 million for the North County jail facility and the South County. So a lot of things happening that have made this county, makes us look good, but makes you guys look good and makes everybody look good. So thankful that we are fiscally sound. I think that's a big important part.
Supervisor Worthley.
One thing I forgot to mention, John, and it may not be, I'm not sure where it actually fits, but I have for some time been concerned about our facilities as they appear from a landscaping standpoint. And going back to when the facility was built out in North County for the juvenile facility, there was no dollars allocated to any type of landscaping. And guess what? It shows, all right? So we've made some half-hearted efforts to do some things out there, but really it's abysmal. It's ugly, and I mean, again, this is the public coming in. We have a lot of public that go in and out of that facility, and we should be ashamed of ourselves for not addressing that sooner. But I want to make sure that we kind of get it on our radar now that we need to take action. And then in all of our facilities, I mean, even around here, we've had trees that die, and we don't replace them. You know, and so we need to be looking at our existing facilities, our landscaping, our grounds, to make sure that we are staying on top of those, making improvements. If we have to put in water systems, if we have to, you know, it's not just a matter of going out there and planting trees, and I understand that, and shrubs. But in many cases, we take things out, we don't replace them, or things die, we don't replace them. And I really think we need to, you know, kind of take a fresh look at all of our facilities and come up with a plan of attack and how we're going to do that.
Very good.
And you know, actually, just kind of dovetailing off of what Supervisor Worthley mentioned, maybe that's an item that, because these are all public places, maybe that's something the Parks Advisory Committee might want to look at, is just the aesthetics, the landscaping of different county structures. Because I mean, a lot of county structures end up being places of recreation or whatever for nearby residents or
homes. Behind us right here, dogs.
I mean,
bring the dogs out and they walk.
And you know, even at Government Plaza, while people are waiting for the bus, I've seen kids throwing the ball in the grass area. So I mean, we do want to have nice landscaping features for the public to enjoy, and it also benefits the aesthetics of our buildings. A couple things. Great presentation, very thorough and well done. I agree with Supervisor Crocker. I think we need to make sure that we invest in our libraries. In many cases, in unincorporated communities, a library may be the only county presence in that community. I know that you showcased the London Library a little bit, and that was great, but I know there's another library that kind of took second fiddle to that library, and that was in Pixley. I think there is some effort that can be made to speed that project along. I know it's towards the bottom of the list just because of sheer dollar amount and the other things you've got going on, but I would like to see that project completed and done soon, because that is a vacant resource in the community that could be utilized at a higher level. But other than that, I thought it was a great plan, and I look forward to seeing the rest of this $60+ million that we have invested over these last couple of years come to completion. And just to reiterate what Supervisor Ennis mentioned, the fiscal responsibility of the board in setting aside the Millennium Fund and dedicating those proceeds strictly to capital needs and capital purposes has been very, very beneficial to this county, and we can continue to see the fruits of that labor and of the thought process of previous boards paying benefit in the future. So.
And regarding the landscaping, what I can do is consult and engage with our ground staff, and then come back with sort of a more thorough assessment of what needs to be done for irrigation or any sort of replanting efforts that should be done.
And one last thing about that, John, I meant to mention, I mean, this would be an opportunity also for the county to showcase the idea of xeriscaping or low water type of, because they can be very attractive, but they can really reduce our normal water, needs and so forth for those areas. So I think it's an opportunity that we need to just take advantage of.
I thought you were going to say offer the county to start helping with the Wood Lake Botanical Garden too.
Well, I specifically stayed away from that. Neil was there, Pereira was there at that meeting, but it was very interesting because the one man who spoke, it's always great to have these retirees who come with tremendous backgrounds, and they have such a person that was there. And he was talking about how he had been on the botanical advisory board or whatever in Denver, Colorado. I mean, all these botanical gardens rely, even San Francisco relies, 70% of their funding comes from private funds. So it's the understanding, this is not something that can be undertaken by the city of Wood Lake. I mean, they can help, we can help, but really the main crux of this has to be private funding in order to really move forward. So anyway, that's all.
And just since he made that point, I think there are private opportunities specifically with Moody Grove Park and maybe some of the other parks or county facilities, not so much county facilities, but park facilities in unincorporated communities where maybe a private entity, a business in, say, Pixley would like to sponsor a shade structure over a table or something and maintain that pavilion. I know that Mooney used to have those opportunities.
Yeah, we still have an Adopt an
out
Arbor
there.
program throughout the parks that have the arbors. Many of them are adopted and have the signage, notifying who
But
is.
reinvigorating that program, promoting it, and laying that out might be a good
Adopt
thing.
a park
Absolutely.
and things like that.
Any public comments related to this? Okay, I do have one request. Please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Elena Saldivar. I'm from Pixley, California. I'm a member of the Pixley Town Council. I was seeing that I guess Pixley has been allotted $25,000 as well as other parks. And I was wondering, is that basically like set in stone, or will there be any kind of adjustment? Because when we think of everything that we really need to, as far as improvements go there at the park, we need lighting, sprinkler system, other improvements to the restroom. The trees are very old, tables, and if I'm not mistaken, they said that was also going to go towards maintenance?
That would just
The
be for
money that was
improvements.
allotted? Just for improvements. Okay, and is that pretty much set where it's going to stay at that amount?
Elena, I don't think that's there's a strict limit there. I think that's a typical allocation right now, just to maybe get some improvements done and into the ground. But the process will be vetted through the community, so I would envision the town council being invited to meet with the Parks Advisory Committee, which Supervisor Shucklian sits on, to offer input as to what you would like to see. And if it does come at a higher dollar amount, maybe the allocation won't be this year, but it could be in future years for additional improvements over the long term to make the park better for the residents.
Okay, because that's basically our major recreation option that we have. I did a survey at one of the stores regarding when we were told that we would possibly be getting something for improvements there, and the people were really interested and excited about us getting anything done there, and so we appreciate you considering us.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena. Any additional public comments? Okay, seeing none, I will end the public comment period and bring it back to the board. This was just a request to receive the presentation. Do you need any formal guidance?
No, but it is an action item with respect to improving the two items.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Ennis, a second by Supervisor Shucklian. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have item number 33 on our agenda, which is a request from the County Administrative Office to authorize the submittal of disbursement requests to draw down $3.5 million from the Tulare County Millennium Fund program pursuant to the Tulare County Public Financing Authority Agreement. Mr. Spada.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The matter before you today embraces the Millennium Fund fiscal year 2017-2018, and in particular, it is a request for disbursement of $3.5 million in order to provide funding support for the capital improvement program. In terms of an overview for this presentation, this report will cover the Millennium Fund program background, appropriations history, a very brief review of capital projects just to give this agenda item some context, and then very importantly, PFM will provide a report. PFM is the fund administrator, and they have been the fund administrator for many years with respect to this project, and we have a long-standing and key representative from PFM who is here today, Lauren Brandt, who will provide that presentation at the time that the slide appears on your screen. And then finally, the requested action will be provided by me. All right. In terms of Millennium Fund program background, in 1999, this Board of Supervisors established the Millennium Fund program. Specifically, it was an endowment dedicated to capital projects and major repairs. Initially, there were $45 million in variable rate bonds issued by the Tulare County Public Financing Authority. The funding came from the Tobacco Settlement Fund, and there were annual revenues provided in order to repay the bonded indebtedness. The proceeds that were invested from these bonds were used to generate additional annual income to be managed by PFM. And the purpose of that additional annual income was to support the capital projects improvement plan. In 2006, for further background, the Board of Supervisors refinanced the Millennium Fund bonds, which realized both interest savings and increased returns. It also eliminated costs by no longer having the requirement of a letter of credit. Importantly, the annual disbursement was increased to $3.5 million. Continuing with the program background, it resulted in becoming a durable source of income for the county's capital needs. And in brief, there has been strong financial performance on record with regard to this program, and you do have a very detailed report that has been attached to your agenda item prepared by PFM. In brief, the report reflects a market valuation of $55.5 million. The outstanding principal of the bonds is $34.5 million, and the unwind position, if the bonds were collapsed, paid off, and so forth, would be $21 million, which is deemed to be favorable. Finally, the total tobacco settlement payments generated over time was $69.5 million. The next slide gives you a survey of the appropriations history. Beginning from 2000 to 2001, the allowable appropriations, including this year, would be $58 million. The actual appropriations from the beginning, 2000 to 2001 to today, would be $46 million, but if you included today's appropriation, it would be $48,700,000. Okay, turning now to capital projects. For fiscal year 17-18, the disbursement request is $3.5 million. The maximum allowable under the program is $3.5 million and would all be used in order to support the capital improvement plan, which was very well presented by Deputy CAO Mr. Hess. For fiscal year 17-18, in brief, the projects to be supported would be the South County Detention Facility, the Property and Evidence Facility, the SB 1022 Day Program Facility to be located at Sequoia Field, Fire Station 1 to be located at the Transit Facility site, and you heard an excellent presentation today by RMA, the Central Road Yard Replacement Well, which is an ongoing matter, conducted very well by our capital improvement project staff, a vocational educational building which will go near Sequoia Field, And then, of course, countywide space moves, which includes the most important one, the Tulare County Office of Ed building, which will be renovated primarily for general services, and also the district attorney. And then finally, you heard a good presentation with regard to park improvements, that will address Mooney Grove, Ledbetter, Balch, Bartlett, Woodville, Cutler, and Pixley Parks. And as I understand it, from prior direction from this board, the approach this year is to address park improvements on a more modest scale as opposed to a larger scale in order to get more bang for the buck spread throughout the county. Just to give you some additional context, the past Millennium Fund projects entailed the Bob Wiley Detention Facility roof replacement, the Juvenile Detention Facility flooring project, the Bob Wiley Detention Facility boiler replacement, the Visalia Library main branch remodel and expansion project, the History of Farm Labor and Ag Museum project, the Cutler Orosi Sheriff Substation, the Motor Pool and Fleet Services relocation project, and the Lindsay Library project. Now I turn to the slide which will be addressed by Ms. Brandt.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board, Mr. Spada and Ms. Peterson. Thank you, Mr. Spada. In terms of the PFM report, that's included in detail in your packet. So I thought I'd hit some highlights there, but of course, feel free to ask any questions. Back in 2009, prior to the issuance of the Millennium Fund bonds, the board set out objectives for the fund. And just to recap, these are primarily to achieve and maintain parity, as well as, of course, to maximize earnings for future capital project needs. So I'm pleased to report that the program continues to achieve its objectives. With respect to achieve and maintain parity, as Mr. Spada noted, the market value of the fund exceeds the outstanding debt on the bonds that were issued back in 1999. So the program achieved parity actually 4 years after the program in 2003. And again, to reiterate what Mr. Spada said about the unwind position, the market value of the fund at $55.5 million exceeds the amount on the outstanding bonds of $34.5 million, which equates to that $21 million unwind position. Now, the county actually just had a debt service payment on August 1st, and so if you take that into consideration, the unwind position actually increases to $22.1 million. So that is the amount that the county would receive, with some expenses, of course, incorporated, were you to collapse the program at this point in time. The second objective that is being achieved is, of course, to maximize the earnings. Specifically, that is the spread or difference between the investment returns on the bonds and, of course, the borrowing cost. Mr. Spada noted that back in 2006, the borrowing cost was fixed at 1 month LIBOR plus 0.25% or 25 basis points. So what we strive to do at PFM, of course, is to not only match what the borrowing cost is, but of course to generate additional income over and above that borrowing rate to expand and grow the endowment. The program itself has grown $11.1 million to date since inception, while appropriating $46.2 million of capital or funds for capital projects. The last 8 years, I don't think I have to remind y'all what a challenging interest rate environment it has been for much of the 2007 through 2016 period. We saw interest rates at historically low levels due to the financial crisis. Overnight rates hovered around 0% for that 8-year period. So that was actually very favorable for the county's borrowing rate. Again, reminding you that 1 month LIBOR plus 0.25%. At the same time, it challenged the investment returns during that same period. So it slowed the growth of the program a little bit, but also kind of factoring in the less than projected receipts that the county received from a tobacco settlement perspective. They're included in your handout is a mapping of what the state projections were at the start of the program and what the county has actually received. As of June of this year, or actually this most recent year, I should say, the actual receipts or the tobacco settlement receipts were $1 million less than what were originally projected. Since the inception of the program, the county has received $6 million less than originally projected. And we expect that trend to continue. But we're combating that on the other side of the equation, which is on the investment return side. So again, even though there are the challenging interest rate environment, which is starting to improve, and some of the less than favorable receipts in terms of the original projections, the program is still ahead of its unwind position in the original projection by the tune of $300,000. So that's favorable. And then again, that is a result also of the yield difference between the investment return and the borrowing cost. That is plus 0.38%, or 38 basis points as we call it in the financial realm. But 0.38% has been the historical yield difference between the investment return and the borrowing cost, which explains why the program continues to grow. So we achieved that return historically through some tactical moves, again, really targeting that borrowing rate of LIBOR, 1-month LIBOR plus 25 basis points, or 0.25%. The structure, as we've outlined in the packet, is predominantly made up of floating rate securities. And so what that allows to happen in periods where we saw in November and December of last year, when interest rates rose significantly, the program was able to keep pace because of the securities with a floating rate structure. So the coupon will reset to capture very quickly the impact of current interest rates. So that's why we've been able to maintain and exceed the rate on the borrowing cost. As I mentioned, interest rates are significantly higher than they were about a year ago. The average borrowing cost for the county over the last year, the program year, which is April to April, averaged 0.82%. As of the end of April, that borrowing cost is now 1.23%. To maintain a conservative approach with respect to making sure we have enough debt service coverage for the period year, the program year, we are recommending a conservative debt service rate of 2.73%. So that represents the most recent borrowing rate plus 1.5% to perhaps account for additional Fed rate increases that may still occur in December and in 2018. So we expect to, again, like I said, expect some gradual rate increases in the economic environment, but we plan to stay the course and stay conservative with respect to the approach to the investment return, so we can continue to not only hit that 0.38% target, but hopefully widen it out as well. Any questions?
Do you have anything further, Mr. Spotter?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation.
All right, the last slide, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, is to respectfully request, number one, that you authorize the submittal of a disbursement request to draw down $3.5 million from the Tulare County Millennium Fund Program pursuant to Tulare County Public Financing Authority Agreement number PFA-03, and secondly, to authorize the County Administrative Officer to sign the disbursement request letter on behalf of Tulare County, and the specimen letter has been attached to the agenda item as attachment B.
Any questions or comments from board members? Supervisor
Just a
Worthley?
quick question for Lauren. Lauren, it's good to see you as always. I know that LIBOR is being phased out, so I'm just wondering, I'm assuming there'll be some substitute system that we'll be comparing ourselves to. Do we have something in mind for that, or?
I wish I had a more firm answer, but I think the markets are still trying to figure that out, Supervisor Worthley. So essentially, this announcement was made about 6 weeks ago. LIBOR, again, is the London interbank offering rate, and essentially has been an index that is used for a variety of reasons, for mortgages, to set rates for commercial paper, for corporate short-term tax borrowing. So the decision was handed down a few weeks ago that they will actually phase out the use of LIBOR by the end of 2021. The primary reason for that, you might harken back to the financial crisis, where there was misuse and abuse, actually, of the LIBOR rate, because essentially it was a very subjective rate. 16 bankers from around the country would get together and phone one another to see what a fair offering rate would be for LIBOR. to set for that particular day, and there's found to be collusion. So they said, okay, probably time to get a different index. And so it's taken them this long to figure out what the phase-out period would be. There has not been a replacement announced next because, again, it will have wide-ranging implications. But we will continue to keep the county appraised of what will happen and, of course, what would be an optimal substitute going forward for this program. But we would expect that the markets will introduce something that will be very similar but perhaps more quantitatively derived versus the subjective way in which LIBOR has been, prepared in the past.
Further questions or comments? Supervisor Crocker?
I guess I just for clarity's sake, we are with the $3.5 million disbursement. We're taking out more than what's necessarily going in. I know there's a 3.9 that we received as far as the tobacco settlement funds, but when you take into account our lease payment and the growth rate, are we still at a loss, or are we still is that the $300,000? Does that take into account our disbursement?
It does.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Any public comments on this item? All right, seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion from
Second.
Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I now have an addendum Board of Supervisors item to take up, and I'll look at Supervisor Shucklian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must have been too excited about the dogs coming when I forgot this during my supervisors' matters. You probably heard in the news that tomorrow, I believe it is, one of our sergeants, Michelle Price, will be donating a kidney to a retired Deputy Dwayne Bass, who was a Tulare County Sheriff's officer also. So if we can, to me, that's the ultimate you can give is the gift of life and a part of your body to someone. So if we can keep them in your thoughts and prayers tomorrow, that would be a good thing.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today's Board of Supervisor meeting. I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe Labor Day weekend. Council, do we have need for closed session?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. Items B and E are off calendar. Items A, C, D, and F will be heard in closed session, but I do not expect any announcements out.
All right. Everybody have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for attending. Meeting adjourned.
It's bacon.